Well, I figured being the resident Batman fan here on the Hybrid Network, I'd have to get around to making this list at some point, especially given the fact that we're about to see a new take on the Cape Crusader through Ben Affleck, which I'm very anticipated for. I'm just going to come out and say right now that your favorite Batman stories might not have made this list, but fear not, because that doesn't mean that they're not special in their own way. Because coming down to an essential 5 reads was a very difficult task for myself, given that I'm a huge fan of the character, that I've read so many different versions of Batman that did have some honorable mentions that I'll get out of the way first. So the books that didn't quite make the cut but are still considered by myself worthy of checking out are Batman Hush by Jeff Loeb and Jim Lee, The Court of Owls by Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo, and All-Star Batman and Robin The Boy Wonder by Frank Miller and Jim Lee. Now, with those honorable mentions out of the way, let's just jump into number 5, which is Batman in Darkest Night by Mike Barr and Jerry Bingham. Many of you may not have heard of this story, but it's an incredibly interesting Elseworld story in which Batman basically gets the Green Lantern ring instead of Hal Jordan, and this one choice, this one little thing, creates an entire ripple effect throughout and changes all kinds of different events and characters within the DC universe. In this version, as Bruce Wayne is sitting in his father's study waiting to die, similar to Batman Year One, uh, the ring comes up and chooses him as he's giving his final words. So I thought that was a really interesting sort of way to introduce that whole thing. And this adds a really different layer to the Batman mythos as it introduces Sinestro as his arch nemesis, who takes up a sort of a Joker role in this story. And this book is meant to be read for any fan of Batman, Green Lantern, or even better, a fan of both, because it merges what's great about both characters. Moving on to number 4, we have The Long Halloween / Dark Victory by Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale. Now, I think no list is complete without having these two books, which I consider one long story. Here we're treated to arguably the greatest origin of Harvey Dent and the birth of Dick Grayson as Robin. Between the gritty take on Gotham City and the incredible gothic art style by Tim Sale, The Long Halloween is just more than just a comic book, it's an epic tragedy tale. We witness iconic moments that inspired the 2008 film The Dark Knight, and we're treated to a riveting murder mystery of the likes that I would compare to HBO's True Detective. I mean, trying to figure out the murder mystery in this book was really confusing. There's so many different red herrings and stuff. You really don't know who it is, and the reveal is pretty awesome, I think. So I would highly recommend reading this book if you're a fan of mysteries, Gotham City, or just great comic books in general. Coming in at number 3, we have the famous Killing Joke by Alan Moore and Brian Bolland. I don't even know where to begin my praise of this book. I can start with the hauntingly vivid art by Brian Bolland, the script by Alan Moore, which is very tight and precise, or just the premise of the story overall. I mean, when you talk about the greatest Batman tales, this is usually a book that's brought up for many obvious reasons. Alan Moore is able to give us the definitive Joker Batman story that actually kind of ends the story. He writes the ending to the relationship before it even ends in the continuity, so it's just done perfectly. It's left entirely ambiguous, and fans have been debating what really happened to this day. Quite possibly my favorite part of this book is towards the end when Batman finally catches up with the Clown Prince of Crime, and the Joker tells him a joke that acts as an allegory for their relationship. Batman responds by laughing, and he grabs him by the shoulders, but people think he grabs him by his neck and kills him there. And yeah, the police arrive to arrest him. So I would say that check this book out if you're a fan of deep quality writing coupled with some fantastic artwork that looks really damn awesome. And they even did an updated version with cool like new colors and a different palette, so it gives it this more modern take. Next up at number 2, we have Batman Year One. Now, I often go back and forth on my number 1 and 2 book, which I will reveal shortly, because it's simply that I feel that both of them added so much to the Batman legend and can be explored on a more psychological level. Now, Year One is the definitive origin for Batman, because in 1988, I believe DC Comics needed someone to create a new origin due to the recent Crisis on Infinite Earths that happened. We got a similar take on Man of Steel in 1986, I believe, by John Byrne. And out of Year One, we got a bold, uncompromising tale of a young man's transformation into the masked Avenger that we know and love today. Actually, the 2005 film Batman Begins borrowed very heavily from this graphic novel, and it included exact sequences like Bruce calling for backup in the form of the bats that fly overhead and attack the police and stuff. Now, David Mazzucchelli's artwork in this book is just really striking, and it creates a character out of Gotham City, actually, and the rich backgrounds that populate it. As gritty as the story is, it's really at its core a story about hope, though. You have James Gordon, who's given up all faith in being a police officer and is really just lost and at the lowest point of his life. And then you introduce a character like Bruce Wayne, who's a needy soul, and you could say the ultimate needy soul. But it's cool because together these two find a way to lift each other up, and it gives us a great character perspective on both of them, and the birth of a great relationship that we see now all the time. This relationship between Batman and Gordon working together, and yeah, it's really cool that this book, one of the main parts of it is that we get to see Batman through James Gordon's eyes. So yeah, Batman Year One is definitely an essential read for any fan of Batman who's not yet delved into the comics aspect of it, or maybe just never got around to reading this story. Now, finally, for the moment that you guys all been waiting for, the number one Batman story of all time, in my opinion, is The Dark Knight Returns. Now, many of you may have guessed this due to the fact that I've talked about this book many different times on different videos, and just anything regarding Batman. If we bring it up in like a throwaway conversation, I'll be like, yeah, Dark Knight Returns, because I feel that this comic really changed everything about the character going forward to up until today, and keep going forward because they're using it for the Dawn of Justice film. Now, Frank Miller was able to take this relic of a character in Batman that's had decades of history and actually modernize it while staying true to everything that had come before it. Now, this book is really the timeless story of like the old warrior coming back for one more fight. That's one of the main themes of the book. You know, Batman comes out of retirement after 10 years of giving up the mantle. And at the time of publication, the things that Miller was doing in this book were just completely unheard of. Things like vilifying Superman, creating a female Robin, and the sort of creepy symbiotic relationship between Batman and the Joker, and especially the inner monologues that helped us understand what Bruce Wayne thought and like how he thought. I don't know which one was Frank's intention to be first and foremost, but what's clear about this book is that it's many things. It can be read on many different levels. It can be read as a social commentary. It can be read as a very intimate personal story about one man struggling with his inner demons and trying to find his own relevance in a world that's kind of passed him by. There's just so many different layers to the story and different lenses that you can look at it through, really. And the great thing about this book is the value of repeated readings, which is one of the factors that's allowed it to remain as a valid literary work over 25 years later, actually. This is kind of interesting to think about because it was published in 1986. So, by this point, I guess you guys have heard enough about my rambling about how much I love Batman. But the great thing about these topic videos like this is the discussion that it'll open up. As a fan of the character, I like to hear what you guys consider to be the top 5 Batman stories of all time. Do you agree with any of my choices? Do you disagree? Let me know down below. And this is Nick signing off. Till next time.